Welcome to WooEnglish, where real stories teach real English. This isn't just another lesson. It's a journey. In this educational audiobook for B1 learners, we dive deep into the hidden world of North Korea's economy. It's a story of rise, collapse, and survival, of secrets buried underground and people trapped above. As you listen, you'll build your English naturally. With simple words, clear sentences, and emotional storytelling, you'll learn about history, politics, and money. But more importantly, you'll feel what it means to live in silence and hope for light. Let's begin. Chapter 1. A Flight into Darkness. It was a quiet morning, too quiet. November 29th, 1987. A man and a young woman walked through Baghdad airport. They looked like father and daughter, calm, silent, but they were not. Their passports said Japan, but they were not Japanese. They were North Korean spies. Their names? Kim Sung-il and Kim Hyun-hui. And their mission? To kill. They boarded Flight 858, a South Korean plane. The passengers were just normal people, students, tourists, families, but on the overhead shelf was death. Inside a small radio was a bomb. Yes, a bomb. Set to explode exactly 9 hours after takeoff. But wait, would they die too? They had a plan. The plane had a stop in Abu Dhabi. They got off there, calm and slow. The plane continued, and hours later, boom! The airplane exploded in the sky. Over the Andaman Sea, 115 people gone. Why? Why would North Korea do this? Let me take you back. 6 years earlier. In 1981, South Korea received big news. The country would host the 1988 Olympic Games. It was a proud moment. The whole world would watch and compare. Compare what? The lives of people in the South and the people in the North. And that scared North Korea a lot. You see, North Korea didn't want its people to know the truth. That life in South Korea was better. More food, more freedom, more hope. So, North Korea made a demand. Let us co-host the Olympics. But the talks failed. Their demands were too much, too extreme. So the North changed its plan. From peace to terror. They would try to ruin the Olympics. They would spread fear. They would send a message to the world. And that message exploded in the sky. With Flight 858, the bomb was ordered by the North Korean leader himself, Kim Jong-il. Yes, the same Kim family still in power today. But here's the strange part. North Korea was not always like this. not always poor, not always desperate. Once it was richer than the South. Once it had strong factories, good farms, and dreams of greatness. So, what happened? That, my friend, is the story we are going to explore. A story of two countries, one people, and a wall of silence. A story hidden from the world until now. North Korea's economy is like a locked room, but in this story, we will find the key. Are you ready to unlock the truth? Chapter 2. One peninsula, two worlds. One land, one people, one history, torn in two. That's what happened to Korea. Not long ago, it was one country, strong, united, proud. But war and politics changed everything. Let's go back to the year 1910. Japan took control of Korea. For 35 years, the Korean people lived under Japanese rule. No freedom, no power, only pain. Then came World War II. Japan lost, and Korea was free again. The people danced in the streets. Finally, independence. But that joy didn't last long. Because two big powers came in, the United States from the south and the Soviet Union from the north. These two countries, friends in war, became rivals in peace. They made a decision. A fast, simple decision. Too fast. Too simple. Let's divide Korea, they said. North to the Soviets, south to the Americans. They drew a line. Just a line on a map. At the 38th parallel. But that line became a wall of ideas, a wall of fear. The North became communist with help from the Soviets. The South became capitalist with help from the Americans. Two Koreas, two systems, two futures. But here's something many people forget. Before the split, Korea's economy was one piece. North and South worked together. They needed each other. The North had the power, electricity, heavy industry, and mining. The South had the food, farms, rice fields, and light factories. Together, they made a whole. Separated, they were broken. Let me explain. Before the division, 92% of the South's electricity came from the North. 95% of steel and 85% of chemicals were made in the North. But 65% of food and 80% of consumer goods came from the South. Can you see the problem? Split them, and both sides suffer. It's like cutting a body in half. One side has the heart, the other has the lungs, but alone neither can breathe. Still, the world didn't listen. In 1950, war exploded. The North invaded the South. Tanks rolled in. Guns fired. Families cried. It was the Korean War. 3 years of fire and blood. But it wasn't just North and South. It was America versus China. Democracy versus communism. The Cold War on Korean soil. The South lost homes, villages, and dreams. But the North lost more. Because the U.S. bombed the North hard. Very hard. More bombs than they used in World War II. The North's factories destroyed. Its cities flattened. Its people devastated. By 1953, the war ended. Not with peace, but with a ceasefire. No winner, no loser, just a broken country. And so, the line remained. Still there today. 2 Koreas. One rich, one poor. But why? If the North had the power, the steel, the factories, why did it fall behind? That, my friend, is the puzzle. And in the next chapter, we will look at the answer. How North Korea, after the war, rose from the ashes. How it became a secret success. Yes, you heard that right. North Korea, once, was stronger than the South. Unbelievable? Let's find out together. Chapter 3. The Rise of the North. Can a country rise after being destroyed? Can a broken land become strong again? Yes, North Korea did it. After the war ended in 1953, everything in the North was in pieces. Cities were gone. Factories were silent. People were tired, hungry, afraid. But just 2 weeks after the war, the leader spoke. Kim Il-sung stood up and said, "We will rebuild. We will rise." And they did. How? Let me take you inside this forgotten miracle. First, help came fast. From the Soviet Union and China. The Soviets sent machines, engineers, and trains. They gave North Korea steel, power stations, and big factories. China sent oil, food, and farming tools. The world was still divided, and both powers wanted North Korea on their side. The North used this help well, very well. They built roads, they built railways, they built hydropower plants, big ones. They made cities light up again. In just a few years, something amazing happened. Industry returned. The economy grew. And not slowly, quickly. Factories opened. Mines worked day and night. Production rose each year by 15%. A massive number. And here's a surprise. For many years, North Korea was richer than South Korea. Yes, richer. More steel, more electricity, more food. But how? Let's look closer. North Korea didn't waste time. They launched a 3-year plan to rebuild heavy industry. They focused on machines, not markets, on power, not products. And it worked. At first. Even farming was a success. How? With water. They built thousands of irrigation systems to bring water to dry land. They built 500 pumping stations and 1,700 small dams. They connected them with 40,000 kilometers of canals. That's enough to go around the earth. Suddenly, food was growing. Rice, corn, vegetables, and they used chemical fertilizers, not just natural ones. This helped them grow even more. Villages had electricity. By 1961, over 92% of rural areas had power. In the South, at that time, many still lived in darkness. Even livestock, cows, pigs, chickens, were many. Meat and eggs were not rare. They were exported to other countries. North Korea was winning, and the world noticed. In 1972, an American journalist visited. Harrison Salisbury, a Pulitzer Prize winner. He looked. He listened. He wrote, "This is a great industrial success." Even a South Korean intelligence officer said, "Pyongyang is clean, beautiful, organized." Hard to believe? Yes. But true. What about trade? Many think North Korea only traded with communists. But no. In the 1970s, they did business with Germany, Japan, and other non-communist countries. They bought hospital tools and construction machines. They sold coal, fabrics, gold, and fish. At that time, North Korea had a working economy, a serious economy, a growing economy. So, what changed? Why is the North poor now? Why did the success stop? We'll find out soon, but first, let's stop and reflect. This chapter is not about politics. It's about people. People who built, who hoped, who believed. Yes, the system had problems. Yes, there was control and fear. But still, in those early years, North Korea rose from the ashes. That's a fact. And maybe, just maybe, there's something we can learn from that. Chapter 4. A Giant with Clay Feet. Big dreams, big buildings, big failures. That's the story of North Korea in the 1980s. From the outside, everything looked strong. Tall towers, wide roads, big factories. But inside, things were cracking. They called it a planned economy. The government controlled everything: farms, shops, salaries. And in the beginning, it worked. But then, the cracks grew. Let's go back to the year 1981. South Korea received good news. They would host the 1988 Olympic Games. It was a big win. The world would see a free, modern, rich South Korea. And what did the North feel? Jealousy? Fear? Panic? North Korea didn't want to look weak. They didn't want the world or their own people to see the truth. So, they made a decision. A dangerous one. They would build faster, bigger, grander. New stadiums, new factories, new buildings, massive and shiny. But here's the problem. They had no money. Still, they borrowed. From France, $80 million to build a cement factory. From Britain, $160 million for more construction. From Japan and others, over $400 million for equipment. That's $1.2 billion in just 5 years. But guess what? They didn't pay it back. Not $1. The projects, many failed. Some were never finished. Others worked. For a while. One example? The Ryugyong Hotel in Pyongyang. It was planned to be the tallest hotel in the world. A triangle of glass and steel. A symbol of pride. Construction began in 1987. But then, money ran out. The building stopped. For 16 years, the hotel stood empty. No windows, no lights, just silence. Locals called it the Phantom Hotel. It became a symbol, not of power, but of problems. The more North Korea tried to impress the world, the more it fell behind. The economy was in trouble. But instead of fixing small things, they kept thinking big. Too big. And outside, the world was changing. The Soviet Union, their biggest supporter, was falling apart. China was opening its market and turning away. North Korea stayed the same. Closed. Strict, afraid, and then came the worst moment. In 1987, North Korea bombed a South Korean plane. Flight 858. We spoke about that in Chapter 1. The world was shocked, angry, afraid. In 1988, the U.S. added North Korea to the list of terrorist countries. Sanctions followed. Trade stopped. The isolation became deeper. Now, imagine this. You are building a house, but the ground under you is soft, like clay. It looks fine at first, but slowly, it starts to sink. That was North Korea. A giant with clay feet. They had big dreams, but weak foundations, too many loans, too little planning, too much pride. And the people? They started to feel it. Food became harder to find. Factories slowed down. The future looked dark. But the worst was still coming. Because in the next chapter, the help from the Soviets will stop. Completely. And North Korea will be alone. Chapter 5. The collapse begins. Imagine a tall building. Strong on the outside, but empty inside. One small shake, and it falls. That's what happened to North Korea's economy The cracks were already there. But in the 1980s, the fall truly began. Why? Because the help stopped. For years, the Soviet Union gave money, machines, oil, and support. China also helped with food and fuel. North Korea needed them, badly. It was like a child needing two parents. One gave food, the other gave tools. But then, both parents turned away. The Soviet Union had big problems. Its economy was breaking. Its politics were in chaos. In 1991, it collapsed completely. China also changed. It opened its doors to the world. It focused on business, not on helping North Korea. And just like that, the aid stopped. No more free oil. No more free food. No more credit. North Korea was alone. And the numbers? Shocking. From 1945 to the early 1980s, North Korea received nearly $5 billion in aid from the Soviets. Much of it was in the form of loans. But they never paid back. Not a single dollar. The same happened with France, Britain, Japan, and others. North Korea borrowed millions for factories, for cement, for machines. But they never returned the money. What happened next? No one wanted to lend to them anymore. Banks said no. Governments said no. Even their old friends said no. North Korea's foreign debt grew and grew until it reached $20 billion. And remember, this was in a country where people were already poor. Some countries, like Czechia, tried to be patient. In 2010, they asked for just $10 million from an old debt. North Korea refused to pay. Instead, they offered 20 tons of ginseng, a root used in medicine and soup. Yes, soup instead of money. Of course, Czechia said no. And that debt? Still unpaid. But that's not all. North Korea also made bad decisions. They spent too much on failed projects. They built things they didn't need. They promised greatness, but delivered nothing. The economy became a joke. But for the people, it was no joke at all. Farms couldn't grow enough food. Factories stopped working. Lights went out. People waited in long lines for a bowl of rice. Children grew up hungry. Parents couldn't help. And the government? It stayed silent. It blamed outsiders. It said, "We are strong." But inside, the system was collapsing. It was the beginning of the Great Famine. A disaster that would kill hundreds of thousands. But that's for a later chapter. Right now, I want you to imagine something. Imagine living in a country full of mountains and minerals, iron, gold, zinc, coal, even rare earths. You live above treasure, but still go to bed hungry. That's North Korea. The country has value, but the system doesn't work. And so, the fall began. Quietly, slowly, painfully, not with war, but with empty pockets, empty shops, empty stomachs, and no way out. But how did it get this bad? In the next chapter, we'll explore North Korea's most unusual habit, taking loans and never paying them back. Strange? Yes, but true. And the story gets even stranger. Chapter 6: Debt, Lies, and Ginseng. What if I told you? North Korea once tried to pay off $10 million. With soup? Yes, soup. Or more exactly, ginseng. Let's talk about money, lies, and strange promises. You already know. North Korea borrowed a lot of money. From many countries. From the East and from the West. They said, "We will pay you back." But they didn't. Not $1. In the 1970s, North Korea was busy building. They needed machines. They needed tools. So they went shopping. From France, they got a loan, $80 million, to build a cement factory. From Britain, another $160 million for construction and materials. From Japan and others, even more, adding up to $1.2 billion. But here's the truth. They never planned to repay. They used the money, finished some projects, abandoned others. Then, silence. The world waited and waited. But no payment came. By the 1980s, banks around the world got the message. No more loans to North Korea. It was like lending money to someone who always disappears. And that's when the debt started to grow. And the respect began to fall. Let me tell you a real story. In 2010, the Czech government contacted North Korea. They wanted to recover a small piece of the old debt, $10 million. North Korea gave them an offer. Not cash, not gold, not even coal. They said, "We will pay you with 20 tons of ginseng." Yes, ginseng. A root used in medicine, tea, and soup. Healthy? Yes. But worth $10 million? Number. At best, the ginseng was worth $500,000. The Czechs said no. And since then, they've received nothing. That's just one example. Countries like Sweden, Finland, and Denmark also gave loans in the past. None were repaid. Why does North Korea do this? Some say it's strategy. Some say it's desperation. Others say it's just arrogance. The truth? It's a mix of all three. They borrow, then disappear. They offer strange things in return, like ginseng, fish, or promises, but never real money. And yet, people kept trying. Why? Because North Korea still had something valuable: minerals. They sit on top of huge natural wealth, 14 billion tons of coal. 6.5 billion tons of magnesium, 3 billion tons of iron, over 1 million tons of nickel, and unknown amounts of gold. That's why some countries still hoped. They thought, one day they will trade. One day we will get our money. But that day never came. And now most countries have given up. North Korea's debt today is close to $20 billion and still growing. No trust, no credit, no future with banks, but inside the country. The story was different. The government told the people, "We are strong. The world is unfair." They hid the truth. They controlled the story. And the people believed or stayed silent. But here's what's important. Trust is like glass. Once it's broken, it's hard to fix. North Korea broke trust with the world again and again. And trust is harder to earn than gold. So, what's left? A country with debt, silence, and walls, but also treasure under its feet. Will they ever use it? Will they ever open up? In the next chapter, we look at what happened after the world said, "No more money, no more deals." We explore the years of darkness, when the people paid the real price. Chapter 7. A Country on the Blacklist. What happens when the whole world turns its back on you? North Korea knows that feeling. Very well. After the bombing of Flight 858 in 1987, everything changed. The world was shocked. 115 innocent people were killed. No warning, no mercy, just silence and smoke in the sky. The United States reacted fast. In 1988, North Korea was added to the list of state sponsors of terrorism. It was official. North Korea was now a country on the blacklist. And what does that mean? It means punishment. It means isolation. It means sanctions. Let me explain. Sanctions are like economic walls. They stop trade. They freeze bank accounts. They cut off money, fuel, and technology. It's not a bomb, but it can destroy a country from the inside. North Korea was already weak. Debt, failed projects, no trust. Now, it was under attack without bullets. The U.S. banned all business with North Korea. Other countries followed. Even some of North Korea's old friends stepped back. And slowly, the lights started to go out. Factories had no parts. Cars had no fuel. Shops had no goods. But the worst part? The people. Ordinary men and women. Farmers, teachers, workers. They were not terrorists. They didn't build bombs, but they paid the price. In the 1990s, things got worse. Much worse. There was no oil for machines, no medicine in hospitals, and then came the famine. Fields were dry, food was gone, children were hungry, and many didn't survive. In some villages, people ate grass. Some boiled tree bark to feel full. Some just waited and hoped. But hope is not food. The government stayed quiet. No news came in. No truth came out. North Koreans didn't know how bad it really was, until their neighbors started to disappear. In some areas, entire families were gone. Meanwhile, the leader spoke of strength, of pride, of self-reliance. He told the world, "We don't need your help." But the truth was clear. North Korea was alone, cut off, crushed by sanctions, crushed by its own lies. And the economy? It fell. Fast. GDP dropped. Trade stopped. Millions suffered. The government tried to hide the crisis. They banned words like famine. They called it the arduous march, a time of heroic struggle. But for the people, it was not heroic. It was survival. Mothers cried for milk. Fathers searched for rice. Children looked at empty bowls. And through it all, the world watched. Some countries tried to help with food, medicine, aid. But North Korea didn't want reporters, didn't want questions, didn't want eyes inside. So, the suffering continued. In silence, in secret. Today, we remember those years as the darkest time in modern North Korean history, a time when the system broke, when hunger became normal, and when pride became poison. But even now, the sanctions have not stopped. Why? Because of nuclear weapons, because of missile tests, because of continued threats. The world still says, we cannot trust this regime. So the blacklist stays. And the people? They continue to struggle, to survive, to hope. But for how long? In the next chapter, we'll look deeper, because while the people suffer, under the ground lies something incredible, a secret treasure. Could that treasure be the key to North Korea's future? Or just another lost opportunity? Chapter 8. Secrets Under the Ground. Imagine this. A starving man sits on a chest of gold. He is cold, he is sick, and all around him is treasure. That man is North Korea. Yes, the country is poor, but under its feet there is wealth, great wealth. Let me show you what's hiding underground. First, coal. North Korea has more than 14 billion tons of it. That's enough to power factories for decades. Then, iron. Around 3 billion tons lie beneath its mountains. Next, magnesium, zinc, nickel, and more. They even have gold and possibly rare earth minerals. Do you know what those are? Rare earths are special materials used in smartphones, electric cars, and missiles. Very valuable. Very important. Some experts say North Korea's mineral wealth is worth $6 to $10 trillion. Others say even more. One report from Goldman Sachs said, North Korea's natural resources could be worth 140 times its total economy. Think about that. A country so rich in minerals, and yet so poor in food. So, the big question is, why haven't they used these resources? Why are they still buried while people go hungry? There are 3 reasons. First, technology. North Korea has mines, but many are old, very old. The machines are broken. The methods are slow. The roads are weak, and electricity is limited. To dig deeply, they need modern tools, but they can't buy them because of sanctions. Second, lack of investment. Usually, countries allow foreign companies to help. They say, "Come build with us, share the profit." But North Korea doesn't trust outsiders. They fear spies. They fear influence. And companies? They don't want to risk their money in a place with no law, no banks, no safety. So they stay away. Third, politics. The government uses control as a weapon. If the people get too rich, they might ask questions. If cities grow, freedom might follow. So the regime keeps everything small, everything closed, everything under control, even if it means poverty. And that's the tragedy. You see, North Korea could change its future. It has the natural tools. It has the land. But it doesn't have the freedom. Not economic freedom. Not political freedom. It chooses isolation over opportunity. And so, the gold stays underground. The coal stays untouched. The people stay hungry. Now imagine this. If North Korea opened just one part of its mining sector, if it allowed safe, clear business, it could build hospitals, fix roads, feed families. It could rise. But fear stops it. Fear of the outside world. Fear of change. Fear of losing power. So, the resources sleep, and the people suffer. It's like hiding medicine from a sick child. Cruel, unfair, heartbreaking. And yet, it continues. But hope still lives, deep under the surface. Maybe one day, these minerals will bring light, not just to machines, but to minds. Maybe the ground will shake, not from missiles, but from progress. And maybe, just maybe, the next generation will dig with freedom, not fear. Chapter 9. The Price of Isolation. Silence can be peaceful, but too much silence can kill. North Korea lives in silence. A silence built by walls, fear, and secrets. But everything has a price, and the price of isolation is heavy. Let's look at it. Clearly, simply, together. More than 60% of North Koreans live in poverty. Many don't eat enough. Many don't have clean water. Many don't have medicine when they're sick. Children grow up smaller, weaker, with less. Yet, just across the border in South Korea, it's a different world. Tall buildings, fast trains, global companies like Samsung and Hyundai. Two countries, same land, but completely different lives. Why? Because one chose connection, and the other chose control. North Korea doesn't trade freely. It doesn't allow the internet. It doesn't allow its people to travel or speak openly. Everything is decided by one man, one family, one system. It's called Yushe, a philosophy of self-reliance. It means we depend on no one. But is that true? In the past, they depended on the Soviet Union, then on China. Now, they depend on fear to stay in power. The people are not weak. They are strong, patient, and proud. But they are tired. They hear promises of greatness. But they see empty markets. They hear music on the radio. But their plates are cold. Some escape. They risk their lives crossing rivers, climbing fences, hiding in trucks. They run to freedom, not because they hate their country, but because they love life, and they want a better one. Still, most cannot leave. The walls are too high. The cost is too great. So they wait. They dream. They endure. But let's be clear. North Korea is not poor because it has no resources. It's poor because of choices. It chose to close. It chose fear over freedom, control over connection. And the price? Suffering. Now, you may ask, can things change? Yes, but change is slow. Change is hard. And change must begin from within. Sanctions alone won't fix things. Bombs won't fix things. Even money won't fix things. What will? Truth, education, courage, hope. The people of North Korea are not the problem. They are the solution. If given the chance, they can build, create, and lead, just like South Koreans did. Just like any people can, when they are free. So, what can we learn from all this? From the rise, the fall, the secrets under the ground? We learn that no country is born to fail. But bad systems, bad decisions, and bad leadership can destroy even the richest land. We learn that pride without progress is dangerous, and that silence can hide deep suffering. We learn that people everywhere, no matter where they're born, deserve dignity, opportunity, and truth. And maybe, one day, the doors will open, the minds will shine, the children will laugh, and the silence will end. Thank you for listening to The Hidden Economy: Secrets of North Korea. This was more than a story about money. It was a story about people, their struggle, their strength, and their silent hope.